If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome. You are now entering the Stone Zone. We're coming to you live tonight from Washington, D.C., where, as the old joke goes, it's so cold that the exhibitionists are describing themselves to people. It is a historic night because President Donald Trump is expected to sign the bill that will end the government shutdown, a subset of Democrat senators having folded on Chuck Schumer and his demands for $1.5 trillion in new spending in order to keep the government functioning. And the president, I think, is about to do a victory lap. The Republicans were always willing to keep the government operational through what's called a continuing resolution that would have continued to fund the U.S. government at current levels without any increases in federal spending. I do want to remind people, however, that when Elon Musk, a man that I admire a great deal and who I'm quite grateful because he returned my profile on Twitter, now known as X, where I am Roger J. Stone Jr., I was banned in 2017. I'm not really sure why. They actually don't tell you why. They just tell you you have violated their community standards, which I actually think means you supported Donald Trump or you question the outcome of the 2020 election or you question the safety and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination or any other of the conventional wisdom narratives. But tonight, we see a return of the Democrats' vicious assault on President Trump, distorting once again the facts about his connection to convicted child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Once again, a number of influencers and bots in the service of the Democrat Party are exhuming a phony line of attack, misstating the history between Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Really should come as no surprise that Democrats previously used this entire line of attack to try to distract people from the fact that there is a former president who has extensive financial and social relationships with the rapist and sex trafficker Epstein, but that would be Bill Clinton. How do I know this? Well, I wrote about it extensively in my book, The Clintons' War on Women, published in 2015. In that book is, of course, the chapter, which is entitled Orgy Island, a title that I got from my good friend Sean Hannity. I also interviewed Virginia Roberts Giuffre for 6 hours, 2 3-hour sessions. She was one of the women who was abused by Epstein, who refused a multi-million-dollar settlement and pushed forward with her litigation against Epstein. She was, several months ago, we were told, committed suicide. Having interviewed her, I frankly doubt that very much, but I not only interviewed her, but I read every word of her sworn testimony in her lawsuit against Epstein. She does concur that Trump was at Epstein's Palm Beach home on one occasion. And on that one occasion, perfect gentleman. She also said that he left relatively quickly after arriving. So that Trump knew was at social gatherings with Jeffrey Epstein is accurate. However, the idea that Trump ever visited Epstein's island or his New York residence is categorically false. In fact, Trump was only on Epstein's plane once, according to the FAA records that I cited in my 2015 book. The British tabloids now falsely claim that Trump had additional flights on Epstein's plane, but let's be very clear. The FAA records show that Donald Trump and his then wife, Marla Maples, and their daughter, Tiffany Trump, were on the Epstein's plane one weekend when Trump's plane was in for service. It left Teterboro in New Jersey, right outside New York City, flew to Palm Beach on a Friday, and returned from Palm Beach on that following Sunday night. So Trump had his wife and his daughter with him, as well as a nanny. Now, the Palm Beach police chief, Michael Ryder, insisted to me when I wrote this book that he gave the state's attorney in Palm Beach County, Florida, enough evidence from a 6-month undercover investigation to charge Jeffrey Epstein with 35 incidents of child sex trafficking and multiple counts of rape of a minor. Chief Ryder, therefore, was shocked when the state's attorney, an elected Democrat, filed the sweetheart plea deal that Epstein's high-priced lawyers, including Roy Black, Gerald Lefcourt, Alan Dershowitz, and former U.S. Solicitor General Ken Starr, secured for him in Florida. The state's attorney who gave Epstein a slap on the wrist almost immediately resigned and formed a private law firm, which almost immediately began providing legal services to several of Epstein's accomplices. Trump actually broke with Jeffrey Epstein as early as late 2004, borrowing him from all of his properties after Epstein made an improper advance to the aforementioned Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who was then underage and working in the spa at Trump's club, Mar-a-Lago. So they broke as early as 24. That's before Epstein was exposed and charged in Florida. Epstein should have gone down initially for sex trafficking. Instead, he was allowed to plead to one count of solicitation, a shocking plea that required him to serve his time not in a Florida state penitentiary like all other sex offenders, but in the air-conditioned and newly renovated Palm Beach County Jail. And even then, he only had to be in jail from 10 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. in the morning. He even had his gourmet meals brought in. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office operated more like Epstein's personal security detail as they transported him during his daytime business activities or in his leisure time at his Palm Beach mansion. Now, when Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder took his concerns about the state's attorney's soft plea deal with Epstein to the U.S. Attorney, Alex Acosta, he had jurisdiction for all of South Florida. Acosta essentially rubber stamped the state plea deal, and then he sealed the record, which means we would know nothing today but for the extensive litigation by the Palm Beach Post newspaper, who ultimately obtained the documents that proved that the Bush Justice Department instructed Acosta, the U.S. attorney, to give Jeffrey Epstein a pass. So in preparation, later, when Acosta would be appointed Secretary of Labor by President Donald Trump, Trump never having been told that Epstein had played that Acosta had played some role in the soft plea deal for Jeffrey Epstein, but had been sold to Trump as an outstanding Hispanic nominee. In case as U.S. attorney, he would simply say that the DOJ had told him that Epstein worked for the CIA and that the matter needed to be sealed. So after his state sentence, Epstein essentially returned almost immediately to his management of his blackmail and sex trafficking operations. But for the dogged reporting of a reporter named Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald, these facts about Epstein probably would never have come to light, nor would his, I think, highly questionable suicide. As I say, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, among his victims who sued Epstein for sexual abuse, in her lawsuit deposition, she admitted that she had met the billionaire Donald Trump, and he was, as I say, a complete gentleman. Trump turned down numerous invitations to Epstein's hedonistic private island and his Palm Beach home. There is no evidence whatsoever that Donald Trump did anything inappropriate or improper. Norma Federer, rest her soul, President Trump's longtime personal assistant, who had become a very good friend of mine, told me that Trump thought Epstein was creepy and barred him from both Mar-a-Lago and barred him also from his properties. I remember Trump telling me that the one time he visited Epstein's Palm Beach home, as he pulled up with his security detail, the swimming pool was full of young girls. Trump told a member of his club, "How nice," I thought. He let the neighborhood kids use his pool. But according to his personal security guard, Trump left Epstein's home within 15 minutes of arrival, feeling uncomfortable even in this public fundraising event with the strange ratio of men to much younger women. Many of the Epstein-based smears against Trump are now recycled by those who would like to distract from the fact that they just closed down the federal government. But Epstein, in fact, provided millions of dollars in seed funding for the Clinton Global Initiative, was a heavy donor to the Clinton Foundation. In fact, it is former President Bill Clinton who visited Epstein's island on at least 17 occasions, as well as being identified in the FAA flight records as having been on Epstein's plane as many as 26 occasions. The Clinton Foundation, by the way, provided 100% of the funding for Terra Mar, a nonprofit controlled by Epstein's pimp co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, which was actually used to hire young female interns to allegedly work on environmental projects while actually constituting a grooming pool. What happened today is House Democrats released a bunch of emails from 2019, most of which are redacted, but none of which actually prove that Donald Trump had knowledge or was involved in any inappropriate way with Jeffrey Epstein. This is the story of the day. When we come back, we'll talk about who did take money from Epstein. That would be Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and what big-name political figures were on Epstein's island, including former President Bill Clinton. I favor full and complete disclosure of all of the Epstein records, and the sooner we do it, the better, because the sooner we do it, the sooner we'll be able to prove that Donald Trump has literally nothing to hide. You're listening to Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone, and we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a very, one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone. I can't tell you how much I appreciate those warm words from Vice President J.D. Vance. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the latest smears trying to connect him to Donald Trump. While they both knew each other, there is no question about that. There is no evidence whatsoever of wrongdoing by Trump, who cut off Epstein as early as 2004, before Epstein was exposed in the state of Florida as a sex criminal. Actually, it's New York Senator Chuck Schumer who accepted thousands of dollars in donations from the pedophile through the 1990s, according to a report in the New York Post. Federal Election Commission records show that Schumer received 7 $1,000 donations, which was then the legal maximum, from Jeffrey Epstein between 1992 and 1997, beginning when Schumer was a U.S. congressman, and then when he was actually running to be the state's U.S. senator in 1998. Epstein, who would later, of course, be charged by the Trump Justice Department in 2019 with 1 count of child sex trafficking and a 2nd count of conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking, also gave a $10,000 contribution to Victory New York, a joint fundraising committee established by Senator Chuck Schumer and the Democrat Senatorial Committee. Epstein also gave an additional $5,000 to Win New York, a Schumer-associated joint committee that benefited the then Liberal Party of New York State, party that no longer exists. Both of Epstein's donations to these committees came in October of 1998 and looked to have been primarily benefited the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee and the old Liberal Party of New York. Epstein would have already met the $2,000 limit when it came to donating to Schumer directly. At the time, donors could only give $1,000 to a candidate per election, once in a primary, again in the general election, which means that Schumer and Schumer-linked entities received a combined $22,000 from Jeffrey Epstein. Now, on the question of whether Epstein did, in fact, kill himself, you can put me down as a skeptic. I point out that the former New York medical examiner, Michael Baden, one of the most respected pathologists in the country, was hired by Epstein's family to examine his body. And Baden, who has seen over 1,000 hanging cases and conducted the autopsies in them, said that the bone fractures in various bones in Epstein's neck were completely and totally inconsistent with his having hung himself. Why the rush to judgment is a little hard to understand. FBI Director Kash Patel actually said in an interview that he's seen no evidence whatsoever that Epstein was involved in sex trafficking of children to others, which leads me to believe what information was shown to the grand jury in 2019 when Epstein was charged with child sex trafficking, as well as a secondary count of conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking. I would point out that when the Trump current Justice Department moved to release all of the grand jury testimony against Epstein, that Democrat judges in both New York and Florida blocked public release of that information. So when it comes to the question of Jeffrey Epstein, put me down as being in favor of full and complete public disclosure. So this can no longer be used as a smear against Donald Trump or an attempt to distract from the fact that the Democrats just shut down the entire federal government for more than 40 days. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is The Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's The Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. You are re-entering The Stone Zone. Joining you tonight live from Washington, D.C. I saw President Donald Trump late this afternoon. I must say he looked hale and hearty. Stories about his being in ill health or being down are completely untrue. The president was ebullient about the fact that he is going to succeed, I believe, tonight in reopening the federal government. Again, Democrats were insisting on $1.5 trillion in new spending, most of it for health care for illegal immigrants as a condition of reopening our government. But a small subset of Democrats have folded. I just got news the House has now passed the bill to end the government shutdown, and the president will sign that moments from now. California Congressman Eric Swalwell has faced a barrage of controversy in recent years, including his alleged extramarital affair with a communist Chinese spy, Fang Fang. Let's just say that Swalwell penetrated her and she penetrated his office by placing a staffer there. Significant because Swalwell was on the House Intelligence Committee, where he had access to classified national security information. Of course, there was also his famous on-air mishap in 2019, an interview with Chris Matthews in which, quite memorably, he, shall we say, broke wind, as the British would say. But now a new revelation raises even more serious questions about Eric Swalwell's integrity and his eligibility to actually serve in Congress. Despite serving as a congressman from California's 15th district and claiming that his hometown is Livermore, California, on his official House profile, Swalwell has declared his Washington, D.C. property as his, quote, principal legal residence. A public deed of trust for Swalwell's home at a Washington, D.C. address, which I'm not going to dox in this public radio program, confirms that the property was designated on the deed of trust as his principal legal residence as a condition of his mortgage loan. The deed also includes explicit language making the borrower liable for false or misleading statements regarding the occupancy of the property. It specifically says, quote, borrower shall be in default if borrower gave material, false, misleading, or inaccurate information or statements to the lender. Material representations include borrower's occupancy of the property as the borrower's principal residence. But under Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, members of the U.S. House must be, quote, inhabitants of the state they represent at the time of their election. In California, maintaining this inhabitancy means that holding tangible, verifiable ties to the state, such as owning or renting a residence, registering to vote, paying state income taxes, and possessing a California driver's license. California's Election Code 349 goes even further. It says a domicile is defined as the place in which his or her habitation is fixed and the place where a person intends to return and remain. So if Congressman Eric Swalwell's true domicile is in Washington, D.C., as he says on the deed to his property and on the mortgage documents, all of which are public, the city he has declared as his principal residence, he may no longer meet the basic requirement of being a California, quote-unquote, inhabitant. Public record searches have not revealed any other home or lease under Eric Swalwell's name in California. I was unable to find one. The address most often associated with his background in Livermore, California, is a 3-bedroom, 1,350 square feet home that belongs to a California family, and they have lived there since 2008, making it highly unlikely that Swalwell resides there today. Failure to maintain a legitimate residence in California could therefore expose Eric Swalwell to legal, ethical, and electoral repercussions. A false declaration of residency risks tax violations, misrepresentations to lenders, and challenges to his eligibility to run for re-election. Politically, the revelation of a Washington, D.C. principal residence undermines Swalwell's credibility and fuels the accusations of hypocrisy, especially since Swalwell rose to power by attacking his predecessor, the late Pete Stark for being out of touch with the district due to the fact that Pete Stark lived outside of California. During his 2012 campaign, Eric Swalwell's mailers mocked former Congressman Pete Stark, a liberal Democrat, as missing from his congressional district. But now, Swalwell himself may be the one who's gone completely missing from the state he's supposed to represent. Swalwell's inability to maintain a California home may stem from his personal financial mismanagement. His 2025 financial disclosure reports paint a very bleak picture indeed. So despite earning $174,000 per year for 13 years as U.S. Congressman, Swalwell has failed to pay down his student loans, remains mired in credit card debt, and has even cashed out his pension. In fact, Swalwell's debts have remained largely unchanged since his first campaign in 2011. Student loans remain between $50,000 and $100,000, and credit card balances are still between $15,000 and $50,000 with both American Express and Chase Bank. So for a sitting member of Congress, such persistent financial instability raises serious questions about judgment, responsibility, and ethics. But it could also explain why Swalwell can't actually afford to maintain a California home as required by law. So like Adam Schiff, his colleague and mentor, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, both of whom have faced scrutiny over conflicting primary residence claims, Swalwell has built his political brand on attacking Donald Trump. After the events of January 6, Swalwell loudly demanded Trump's removal and later filed a civil lawsuit against President Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, the former New York mayor, and Congressman Mo Brooks. To this day, Swalwell continues to portray himself as a moral authority, insisting that Trump, quote, cannot defend democratic ideals like the peaceful transfer of power. Yet while preaching accountability, Swalwell appears unwilling to meet the most basic standards of his own office. There appears to be a total lack of truthfulness and transparency about where the congressman actually lives. I say it's time for Eric Swalwell to come clean. As he declared in his Washington, D.C. documents, D.C.'s D.C. House is his principal residence, while he's not disclosing any verifiable domicile in California. Therefore, he's deceiving both the lenders and the voters. The law is very clear. A member of Congress must remain an inhabitant of the state they represent. By abandoning any genuine California domicile, Swalwell risks dequalification and betrays the very district that he elected him to Congress. I think this hypocrisy is glaring. The man who once accused others of being out of touch with the district and attacking his predecessor, Pete Stark, a liberal Democrat, has literally moved out of the state. If Eric Swalwell can't demonstrate a legitimate home in California, I think he should resign immediately before voters, creditors, and the law require him to do so. Meanwhile, the senator from California is also under investigation for mortgage fraud, as Fox News has reported. Fox News' Laura Ingraham has reported exclusively that the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland is investigating Adam Schiff for possible charges involving mortgage fraud. In 2000, Schiff was elected to Congress and has served as a U.S. House member from the state of California ever since. He was more recently elected to the U.S. Senate. Schiff reportedly purchased a home in Maryland with his wife in 2003, stating in the mortgage documents, which are public records, that he would occupy this home for 12 consecutive months as their primary residence. So despite this claim, Schiff continued to vote in California. Schiff refinanced the home in 2009, 2011, and 2013, claiming once again that the Maryland home was his primary residence. In 2009, a House ethics investigation claimed that Schiff did this, and Schiff claimed it was an error and that he repaid the exempt taxes to the state of Maryland. President Trump last month called for Adam Schiff to be prosecuted and posted the receipts on the Democrats' Senate mortgage fraud. I want to be very clear. All of these are publicly available documents that anyone with a computer and half a brain can find. Donald Trump was pretty succinct in his comments, saying that Adam Schiff is a thief. He should be prosecuted just like they tried to prosecute me, the president said. The only difference is I was completely innocent and it was all a giant hoax. President Trump actually attached a screenshot of the signed and notarized affidavit in which Adam Schiff proclaimed the mortgage property in Maryland, like his colleague Swalwell, to be his principal legal residence. Now, it is true that Adam Schiff, unlike Swalwell, has a condominium in Los Angeles, actually in Burbank, that he claims as his, quote, primary residence. But wait a minute, one cannot have two primary legal residences. This is textbook mortgage occupancy fraud. Last month, Laura Ingraham on Fox revealed that she had exclusively obtained a criminal referral for Adam Schiff, and that the allegations in that criminal referral from the Federal Housing and Finance Administration Director Bill Pulte accused Schiff of falsifying bank documents and property records over a period of 16 years in order to score more favorable mortgage terms and rates. The fraudulent activity allegedly spanned from 2003 to 2019 and centers on a lavish Potomac, Maryland home, while Schiff simultaneously maintained a one-bedroom condominium in Burbank, California. The referral submitted to the Department of Justice by Housing Director Bill Pulte alleges that Schiff has, in multiple instances, falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable mortgage terms, impacting payments from 2003 to 2019 for the Potomac, Maryland-based property. Schiff owns a home in California and another in Maryland, and Ingram incorrectly reported at that time. So the real question here is, do we have a two-tier justice system, and will Adam Schiff be held to account? I can assure you that if I did this, I would most definitely be prosecuted. Which brings us to the case of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Letitia James has been charged with mortgage and bank fraud in the Eastern District of Virginia. She has entered a non-guilty plea, and the Wall Street Journal recently tried to whitewash this entire thing, claiming that the evidence against her was either unconvincing or insufficient. Really, her defense boils down to, I'm being prosecuted simply because the president hates me. The existence of political motivation does not erase the documentary evidence, however. If it did, every powerful person prosecuted by a political opponent would be immune from accountability. But that's the precedent that Abby Lowell, who is the attorney for the New York Attorney General, is asking the Biden-appointed judge in the Virginia case to establish. In fact, Letitia James' lawyer just filed a 50-page motion seeking to dismiss the federal indictments against Letitia James. His constitutional arguments are sophisticated, but his factual claims are all provably false. I'll tell you what's interesting. When I was charged in the District of Columbia, the judge specifically prohibited my defense attorneys from raising the question of whether I was being selectively prosecuted or whether I was being prosecuted for political motives. So I wonder if the Biden-appointed judge in Letitia James' case will issue the same ruling against her. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone, joining you tonight from Washington, D.C., where earlier this evening, a subgroup of Democrat senators broke with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and voted to reopen the federal government. And then only minutes ago, the Republican majority in the House passed legislation opening the government, which President Trump will sign shortly. The far-left extremist group, Indivisible, which is responsible for the No Kings protests earlier this year, has, in response to all of this, announced they'll only be getting behind candidates that are opposed to the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer. I guess they are blaming Schumer for not being able to maintain control of his caucus and keep the government shut down, punishing the American people in order to give Democrats more political leverage. They're calling for every candidate in the Democrat primaries to give a, quote, clear commitment to abandon the status quo of reckless, feckless leadership and use every tool available to fight MAGA attacks on our communities, our health, and our democracy. The Indivisible organizer, a man named Ezra Levin, says that Chuck Schumer and a critical mass of Senate Democrats surrendered. The Democrats had their best election night in over a decade. Poll shows Republicans were losing the shutdown fight, and their base turned out for the largest protest in modern U.S. history. And they claimed the recent elections were a resounding rejection of Trump and Republicans. I disagree with that analysis. What happened was an overwhelmingly Democrat city, New York City, elected a extremely radical Democrat mayor by the smallest margin of any local previous Democrat mayor. In Virginia and New Jersey, both now reliably Democrat states, elected Democrat governors. So I'm reading that this was somehow a referendum on Donald Trump or a rejection of republicanism or the Republican policies of putting America first is categorically false. Instead of standing, the Senate Democrats surrendered, according to their left wing, and now you will see fratricide in the Democrat Party as the progressive, more socialist left wing takes out the corporate Democrats like Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is scared to death that AOC, a former bartender from the Bronx, is going to challenge him in the U.S. Senate primary in New York. Based on the returns of the Democrat primary between new socialist mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, if AOC does challenge Chuck Schumer is toast. This shows yet again the Democrats have an extremism problem that will just not go away. Politicians like Schumer are not long for this world. They'll eventually be ousted and disgraced if they don't slither away before that can happen. Mamdaniism is the future of the Democrat Party, and unless the Republicans can rise to the challenge of defeating them, it will eventually transform the country from a constitutional republic to a Marxist hellscape. Meanwhile, the new statistics in Chicago show that Donald Trump has facilitated a massive drop in crime in the Windy City. Ever since the launching of Operation Midway Blitz, the president pointed out that Chicago, Illinois, despite all the radical opposition and obstruction from the mayor, Brandon Johnson, has seen car thefts, shootings, robberies, violent crime, and all crimes across the board drop dramatically. Since the launch of the Department of Homeland Security's Operation Chicago, shootings were down 35%, robberies were down 41%, and carjackings were down almost 50%. This has been achieved despite the extraordinary resistance of Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, a man who has never seen this before in politics, a 6% approval rating. Shows that Donald Trump is right and that the crime in our major cities, like right here in the District of Columbia, where I must tell you the city is cleaner and safer than any time that I've seen it previously can be achieved. The Democrats claim this is an invasion of some kind when the president is keeping his commitment to restore law and order. Thanks for joining us tonight in the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.